despite the pandemic. And I think we have obviously more to do, always, but I think we've done a fair job.
À l'ordre, conformément à l'article.
Order pursuant to Standing Order 38. It's my duty to inform the House that the questions to be raised tonight at the time of adjournment are as follows.
Regina Luwan, the Environment. The Honourable Member for Kenora, Regional Economic Development. The Honourable Member for Mégantic l'Érable, Health. Resuming debate, the Honourable Member for Kildona St. Paul.
Here. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I want to say that I ran to be an MP because I love Canada. I love our country. My ancestors fled tyranny and war-torn Eastern Europe over 130 years ago to come to the Canadian prairies for the freedom and opportunity it represented. Their hard work and sacrifice created a better life for all of those who followed, including myself, and I'm motivated every day to honor them and to do right by them and my constituents and to contribute to united and prosperous Canada, glorious and free. But since I was elected over 2 years ago, I've grown increasingly concerned over the state of our national unity. Whether it's been the alarming rise of Western alienation or Quebec separatism, or the increasing divide between urban versus rural, or the division on the COVID-19 pandemic, national unity seems to be at an all-time low. And it's understandable in many ways, given the terrible 2 years it's been for all of us. 30,000 Canadians tragically died of COVID-19, and thousands continue to suffer from long COVID. Thousands more have suffered from delayed surgeries. Few families, including my own, have been left untouched by the cruelty of COVID-19. And as a result, millions of Canadians I've heard firsthand are terrified of COVID. They feel that it's a death sentence to them or their loved ones. Many will never recover from this fear. I've spoken to them firsthand. Many constituents of mine have said that they will never take their masks off again in public or feel comfortable in large crowds or even travel ever again. But thankfully, with incredible human ingenuity, COVID vaccines were developed at warp speed and rolled out worldwide to billions of people around the world in a matter of months, saving hundreds of thousands of lives. And thanks to the extraordinary healthcare workers, thousands of sick Canadians were supported throughout this pandemic. But I do believe we have reached a point that we must make serious investments, transformative change, and take the best practices from around the world for our healthcare system so that people will be better prepared, so that we'll all be better prepared for future pandemics, which every expert is telling us that this won't be the last one. There's more to come. We will go through this again. It's just a matter of time. And the data tells us that during normal times, on average, our healthcare capacity operates at over 100%. Hallway medicine, 8-hour ER wait times, months of MRIs and critical surgeries for hip and knee replacements, and many others. These have been issues longer than I've been alive, Madam Speaker. And we know that our healthcare system experiences tremendous strain during flu season, let alone during the tsunami of sick people from COVID over the past 2 years. And this is why governments say that they've needed to take extreme and extraordinary measures because our healthcare system can't handle everybody getting sick at one time. So we were told, we're all in this together, and we all stayed home, 2 weeks to bend the curve. We all remember that. And yet 2 years later, we continue to live extremely restricted lives. And as a result, hundreds of thousands of businesses that depend on public gatherings have closed, representing countless family dreams and all the jobs that they supported completely wiped out. Untold damage has been done to our mental health and the development of our children. The deadly impact of isolation on our elderly is measurable. Increased alcohol and drug abuse, divorce, depression, the list goes on and on of the impacts of this. And as a representative of nearly 100,000 people, I have heard these traumas firsthand. I have dealt with sobbing and threats and screaming and pleading. And their stories have haunted me, Madam Speaker. So to describe the last 2 years in one word, I would say trauma. We have all experienced trauma. And millions of Canadians are at the end of their ropes. They can't take this anymore. And the result of that is right outside this building, Madam Speaker. And honestly, from that perspective, I don't find all of what's going on right now outside very surprising. It's like a pressure release valve just exploded after the last 2 years. And I do want the truckers to know, and all those who support the convoy, that I want them to know that I hear you, I see you, and I care about you, and I care about all of our freedoms. Watching the footage online of that convoy making its way across Canada, passing families of all cultural backgrounds along highways and overpasses and the gatherings of tens of thousands of people on Parliament Hill, I've never seen so many Canadian flags waving in the wind, Madam Speaker. And as a patriotic Canadian, I have to say it made me quite emotional. It's making me emotional now. And I acknowledge, though, and this is important, that some people are angry. And I denounce the evil people who seize this opportunity to display their ignorance and their hatred. And I denounce them fully, Madam Speaker. But many more, thousands more, are expressing their patriotism for their country, are expressing hope for the future and the excitement for change, which honestly is giving them the will to keep going, to persevere through this incredibly difficult time. They just want to be heard from their governments, to have them look at other jurisdictions, you know, what's happening in the UK, the Netherlands, Ireland, Norway, and many other advanced nations who are opening up, moving past mandates, and learning to live with this. And we can do it too. We have some of the highest vaccination rates, if not the highest vaccination rates in the world. We have rapid tests. We've all put the work in. We have all of the tools we need, and now is the time to move forward, Madam Speaker. But to be honest, I do fear that we may never get back to normal, especially when I see the hatred developed between Canadians. Treating each other with dignity, compassion, and respect seems to have been long forgotten, long ago. And I have to say, I do personally, you know, on a personal level, understand the frustrations of some vaccinated Canadians on unvaccinated Canadians. I hear them too. I see them. I hear from them. I get it. But I do want to share a couple stories with you. When I was door knocking during the last election, I met a single woman about my age. She was on her front step, and her young son was clinging to her leg as she shared her story with me. She said, she was a social worker, and she said last year she received Hero of the Year award for going above and beyond as a social worker to help the most vulnerable in our community. But this year, and this is when she started to cry in front of me, she said that no one will talk to her. And she said that she was going to be fired from her job. And do you want to know why? Because she was too afraid to get the COVID vaccine. She was too afraid, she believed it in her bones, and there was no convincing this woman otherwise. And when the province of Manitoba brought forward their strong mandates, there were articles in the local paper about nursing staff suddenly seeing a lot of anger and a lot of rage and tears coming from new people coming in to get the jab. And it seemed that some people in the public were surprised to learn this. And quite honestly, I didn't find it very surprising that people who were forced against their will with their job hanging over their head, who believe with every fiber of their being that it's not right for them for whatever reason, were angry and crying. And I've talked to these people. They've reached out to me. I've made the time. They're my constituents, and I heard them out. And they described to me their experience of getting the jab, so to speak. It was as if it broke them. It utterly ripped away part of who they are, of everything that they believe this country is. It took away their agency. It took away their bodily autonomy. And that's what mandates do to people, Madam Speaker. That is the reality. And of course there were tears and rage. I mean, these are human beings. And I'll remind everyone, for the first year and a half of the pandemic, it was this Prime Minister who said, vaccines for all those who want them. Vaccines for all those who want them. He must have said it 1,000 times. And yet, with the drop of a hat, he called that election, and with days of saying that, he went to yelling into a microphone at a Liberal rally, you have the right not to get vaccinated, but you don't have the right to sit next to someone who is.
Shameful.
He said that.
Shameful.
Shame on him for dehumanizing people that way, Madam Speaker. Canada is fracturing, and the Prime Minister is winning votes on it. Whether it's the East versus West, or urban versus rural, left versus right, or now the pandemic, he's been dividing Canadians for 6 years. Uniting the country, leading freedom over fear, should be the #1 priority of the Prime Minister. But to be honest, I'm beginning to doubt we can ever unite Canadians again, that we'll ever get back to normal, that people can make their own personal health choices and still be equal. But I'll conclude with this. It was during a particularly low day recently, I think we've all had those over the last 2 years, I heard a story that gave me a little bit of renewed hope and motivation. I'm going to share it with you. It's about President John F. Kennedy. You see, JFK in 1961 had a decision to make. He wanted to call a news conference and tell the world that the Americans were going to the moon. And this was a very risky decision for his reputation because technically there was no way forward. The technology did not exist and had never been done before. But he needed to decide, so he went to the most brilliant aerospace engineer in America and he asked him, what will it take to go to the moon? What will it take? And the engineer responded with 5 words. 5 words. The will to do it. The will to do it. And the rest was history after that, Madam Speaker. So what's it going to take? What's it going to take to heal the trauma and division? What's it going to take to bring Canadians together again? What's it going to take to unite this country? The will to do it, the courage and conviction. The will to do it will deliver the glorious and free Canada that we all rightfully deserve. And I, for one, Madam Speaker, will work day and night to deliver that to my constituents and all Canadians. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Vancouver-Grenville.
Madam Speaker, and I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for her speech and for our ongoing wonderful working relationship together in committee. The member spoke about the importance of vaccination and the value that that's provided in providing us a path towards freedom, as she refers to it. She also expressed some other concerns. I'd like her if she could share with this House how she reconciles the views that folks have right now about not getting vaccinated with the fact that we do have mandatory vaccination for children across the country in many provinces in order for them to be able to attend school. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable member for Kildone and St. Paul.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I've also enjoyed working with the member. We're studying some really important issues right now. And what I would say is that I find the rhetoric over the last 2 years, particularly since the Prime Minister called that $600 million unnecessary election, which further divided Canadians, I have been concerned about the hatred, and I'm sure he is as well, from all sides against one another. There's not nearly enough communication. I think it was a recent poll that said 20% of Canadians think that unvaccinated people should go to jail. Like, we are pushing this so far, Madam Speaker. I am seeing it. I've been door knocking for years, and in the election I saw so much hate, so much division, and tears, like lots of tears. So I appreciate the member's question, but what I would say is that we need to move forward, recognize that we have done an outstanding job. We have one of the most highest vaccination rates in the world. We need to move forward.
Here.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The honourable member for Nanaimo, for Port Moody Coquitlam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for the comments. I wanted to talk a little bit again about the care economy and elevating traditional work that belonged to women for many, many years. If the needed investments in healthcare transfers were increased instead of cut by the Conservatives and then those cuts not restored by the Liberals, we would have a stronger health support system to support COVID alongside cancer and pediatric surgeries that are not being able to be met right now. If we do not invest in the care economy in a way that increases healthcare transfers, as the premiers are asking for, we will not be able to weather any other health crises. Do the Conservatives support greater healthcare transfers to the provinces?
The honourable member for Kildone and St. Paul.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I really appreciate the very important question from the member. Congratulations to her on her first election. And absolutely, I do, as I mentioned in my speech, I think we need much more investment in healthcare. We also need transformative change. As I mentioned, we need to be looking at best practices around the world. We are seeing other countries with far better surge capacity than in Canada. And as I said, this is not the last pandemic. This is not the last wave. We need to prepare our healthcare system so that we can have that surge capacity, so that we don't need to do what's been done to people for the last 2 years, so that governments can no longer default to say, well, you got to stay home for 2 years because our healthcare system can't work. I don't want to hear that excuse anymore. I want to see transformative change so that we can usher in an era of healthcare that truly supports everyone. No more 8-hour work or 8-hour ER wait times. No more 2 years for a hip replacement. No more shutting down the economy because it can't handle a surge. We need to build a robust healthcare system, Madam Speaker.